Mr. Philip Avalon, it is an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I've been watching your movies pretty much since I was a kid, getting VHS and DVDs from the video shop.
Well, I actually started, Shane, before they had VHS. I'm pretty, I'm giving my age away, but I actually started on a 16mm Bollex camera.
Wow. Have you still got it?
No, I wished I did, because this modern technology often is a struggle for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something I was going to ask you a little bit later. When it comes to making movies digital, do you prefer that now? Because is it easier, or do you just like the old school method?
I really prefer the old school, although I think I did the last one on film. Liquid Bridge I did on film.
Yeah.
Cut it on film, and digital was already in, but I was very fortunate with the post-production house. They were like me. They kind of liked having the film, in your hands and cutting it. So we actually cut it on film, and after that, my more recent ones I have done on digitally. Yeah.
Well, I'll kick it off by asking about your latest, which is indie movie Sons of Summer. Is this close to one of the biggest surf dramas you've ever done? It's quite an involved movie with a lot happening in it.
Yes, look, it is a distant relation to Summer City.
Yep.
And I did Summer City while I was still at drama school, and I had this idea that no one's ever done a movie on surf culture in that period. So I wrote one which was called Summer City. And I took it to John Jarrett, and I said to him, I've got a role here. John had just played a role on a film in Melbourne, a supporting role, and I really liked his work. And he said, why don't you go to NIDA? There's a couple of guys there in NIDA that are worth a look. So I did. I had a look at the first-year drama students, which I was, and that was Mel Gibson and Steve Bisley. So I cast them and John and myself, and we played 4 lead roles on the movie Summer City, which did very well.
It was filmed up at Catho's, wasn't it? Catherine Hill Bay?
It was filmed at Catherine Hill Bay. We rented an old RSL hall for $100 a week.
Yep.
I gathered 40 or 50 mattresses that was slung out along the road. In those days, people used to put mattresses out for the council to come and pick up.
I think it still happens.
It still happens. And they were in the hall, and that's where we, the crew and the cast, stayed for the period of the film, on the floor in $100 a week RSL hall.
Wow, the RSL is probably still up there. I live on the Central Coast, so not far away from Catherine Hill Bay.
Right, okay. Well, I would imagine it's still there. I know we had a lot of time in the pub there.
Yeah, the famous pub, Catho's Pub. I mean, and how did the sequel fare? Were you happy with how Breakin Loose turned out?
I was, because at that particular time, there was so much interest in Summer City, and I kept getting calls about, where's the sequel? Hurry up and get the sequel out.
Right.
So I sat down and wrote the sequel, and then I got Dennis Whitburn, who was a writing pal, to come on board and assist.
Yep.
And that became Breaking Loose, and Peter Phelps played the lead role. And we recreated that, and it did really well. I took it to the Cannes Film Festival, and it did exceptionally well internationally, more so than Australia, which was surprising.
Yeah, I didn't get to see it, I don't think, at the time when it was on in
Are we still together? No.
I didn't get to see Breakin Loose in the cinema when it was released, but I did go and see Exchange Lifeguards.
Oh, right, yes.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting.
Yes, that was another film that came from me attending the film markets globally.
Yeah.
A UK buyer said to me, look, you live in Australia where lifeguards are a big thing. Why don't you do a movie on it? If you do, I'll buy it. I'll buy it for the UK and Germany and this and that and the other. And I said, okay. And I'd met Elliot Gould at my 28th birthday.
Amazing.
And I said to Elliot, would you be interested in playing a role on? He said, send me the script. So I did. And he said, who's playing my son? And I said, Christopher Atkins. He said, oh my God, my son is with him on a television show right now. And I like him. So send me the script. And I did. And Elliot joined us. And we cast Julian McMahon in his first role.
Yeah, I spoke to Julian maybe 5-6 years ago on a red carpet, and I asked him about exchange lifeguards, and I think he was shocked that I even knew what it was.
Yes, well, it was retitled in America and elsewhere as Wet and Wild Summer.
Yeah, and I mean, with Sons of Summer, is that something that you've been working on for a long time? I mean, it's hard to get independent movies, I reckon, funded these days. Would you agree with that?
I would. It's very difficult to raise the money privately for an independent film. But with branding, like Summer City, it becomes a little bit easier.
Right.
And this one being a distant relation, I mean, being the sons of the four guys, even though one was murdered, it wasn't as difficult as it could have been.
That's good. And I mean, you've got some great cast on board. I really like the work of Isabel Lucas. I think she's always low-key, but interesting. Temuera, of course. You work with Christopher Pate again. You've worked with him a few times.
I have. And I really like, Christopher turns in a terrific performance in this. I mean, it was the kind of role that Chris was really nervous about.
Right.
Playing heavy, kind of mafia boss. And Clive Fleury, the director, sat down and had a long conversation with him and said, look, you can do this. And he did. He delivered. And Temuera, well, we don't have to talk about Temuera. He's one of the best actors on the planet.
Yeah.
Joe Davidson, the new guy on the block, is terrific in the film. Really good.
Yeah, he is. I've had a chance to watch the movie, and I had never seen or heard of him before, but it's like he's a natural. It's like he's been doing it for a long time. He fit. You have a knack of casting. I don't know if you had something to do with casting him, but you have a knack of casting good young stars.
Well, his tape came to me from Cole Handley, who is a stunt coordinator.
Yeah, sure.
And he does courses with Cole. And Cole said to me, I've got this guy. He's a good-looking guy. He's really dedicated. He's not only a good stunty, but I've seen his reel. Can I send you his reel? I said, sure. And I've always kept an open door on casting.
Yeah.
And I saw the reel and I was very impressed. And I contacted him. And then through distribution, we have other things come into play. So there were other people suggested, which I actually had to look at with the director.
Yeah.
And I kept coming back to Joe and promoting him to the director. And Clive said, you know what? He's terrific. Let's go with him. So we did. And that's how Joe got the role. And it was a key role in the film. And I think he'd definitely go on to bigger and better things.
I hope so. Yeah, he's got the talent and the chemistry with his co-stars.
Yes.
What about someone like Ryan Kwanten? I mean, that's another movie I saw when it was released at George Street in the city, Signal 1. He had a small role in that. And of course, Liquid Bridge after that. He's another one that you kind of discovered, I assume.
Something wrong with the interview.
Oh, I can hear you again.
The interview, there was something wrong there. I didn't hear what you said, but
no worries.
Ryan Kwanten, did you mention?
Yeah, I was going to just mention that you have a knack for casting, as I mentioned before, and I saw Signal 1 at the cinema, one of the few, I think.
Yes, Signal 1 was interesting, and Jacko,
Yeah,
he came with a package, Mark Jackson, and again we used Christopher Atkins.
you did.
It was a nice combo, and again, because it was a crime drama cop, thriller, sort of Lethal Weapon kind of film, poor man's version. It didn't light the fires as much as I would have enjoyed in Australia, but again, it did well overseas. But you were talking about Ryan Kwanten.
Liquid Bridge.
And Liquid Bridge. And again, Ryan did such a good job on that. And he was pretty much unknown outside Australia. He'd done some soap here. Sure. But he put on internationally from Liquid Bridge, I'm happy to say. So we have picked the right people on the right films, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I've spoken to Ryan a couple of times, and he's another actor. When I brought up Signal 1, he was shocked I knew it. So it's good that they can reference back to these movies that you've done. You've been around such a long time, like Tony Bonner. Just you and Tony Bonner are like two peas in a pod.
We are, and we've often we work together on a film as actors. We worked together on a film called In of the Damned.
Right, yeah.
And that's when I took a lot of respect for Tony on that film. And that's why he was cast on Liquid Bridge as Ryan's dad.
Yeah.
I directed it, and he was a dream to direct. I'm very, very impressed, because it's unusual. I mean, because we are alike, and we have probably been up for the same roles on the same films in the earlier days.
Probably.
So it's a pleasure, and I'm still in contact with Tony a lot. I've offered him. Well, we worked together again on William Kelly's War.
Okay. And I've also spoken to Tony, and he's a lovely guy. It's a privilege to speak to people like yourself and Tony, because, I grew up just watching the work, and I've always been an advocate of Australian film. Is it different to Hollywood? Why didn't you go over to Hollywood permanently? You just wanted to stay in Australia, or did you ever get the chance?
Well, I did my 2 years there. A magazine took me over there to promote the magazine.
Yeah.
And they took me it was a global trip. And when I landed in Hollywood, I got lucky. I had a very good agent, Walker, who formerly ran Universal Studios.
Wow.
And shared a place with Rod Taylor and Charles Bronson. They were
Bronson.
They were buddies in Malibu in the early days. Like me, Bob moved from the acting side and went into the production side, but he ended up running Universal. And he said to me, I can get you into Universal for a year, like he did with other actors, if you want to. And I said, well, look, I've done a couple of films in Australia, and I think I'm homesick. And this is after about 12 months. And I'd done a couple of things whilst I was there. And I just thought, look, I'm happier in Australia. I know Australia. I know the talent there. So I came home. And that was that. I've been happy to work out of the country, all my life.
Yeah, well, you've just dropped some great names there. Rod Taylor and Charles Bronson. It doesn't get much better than that.
No, well, Bob got Rod Taylor his green card.
Okay.
And Rod asked me to produce a film that he bought the rights to, that he was to direct, called The Last Bus to Banjo Creek.
Right.
Beautiful script, but we never got around to it. It's funny, I've had a few opportunities. He got busy, I got busy, and they don't get done. These wonderful pieces of history that I've had the opportunity to do on several occasions, but somehow or other missed the boat. But I've been happy doing the films that I've done over the decades.
Have you ever knocked anything back that you can think of that went on to be a huge blockbuster that you might have thought, oh, maybe I should have done that?
I have. I have.
Yeah.
Many errors. I've been offered some really good material in the past, and I've either been working on something else. I mean, I get pretty much an offer every week of my life from someone. And either do this or that, direct or produce or write or whatever. And but I kind of always got something in development. And right now I've got the follow-up to Sons of Summer in development.
Have you already? You're that confident?
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, I don't know. You got so many iconic films. They're great posters as well. Have you kept you've got the Sons of Summer poster in the background where you're sitting now, but have you kept all your other posters from the films that you've produced or written or directed?
I haven't, but I did donate a bunch to the Surf Museum at Currumbin.
Okay.
So hopefully they'll preserve them.
Yeah.
Because I've shifted around a bit and they get damaged and lost and whatever. But one hopes that the Surf Museum and also Canberra, the library down there, will keep them.
Good. Yeah, no, good.
When I go.
Don't say that. And another thing I want to ask you about your movies, they're not really good. That your movies are not readily available. I mean, you can watch a few rough copies on YouTube on certain movies, but are they ever the copyrights ever going to be available to put them on Blu-ray or update them to a special edition for physical media?
Some of them have, like they doubled Summer City with Breakin Loose and the album.
Yeah.
That went out as a DVD. Look, I'm not sure. Umbrella do this with films.
They do.
So I'm pretty sure, as time goes by, they'll do that.
Good. Well, I hope I'm part of it because I've seen them all and I've got a few DVD copies of some of your movies myself. It was very hard to find Exchange Lifeguards, but I got a copy.
Oh, good. Well done. Well done, because I don't have a copy.
Okay, so when you're filming a film, a surf that involves surfing, what happens if there's no surf and you need an insert? Do you just go traveling like a normal surfing nomad would, or do you have to wait till the swell picks up?
Well, I normally I'm in contact with surf cinematographers.
Yeah.
And always go to them and ask them, when is it going to be on and who are they going to shoot? And if we need to double somebody, we can double them and give them the wardrobe, in other words, what wetsuit they're wearing, so we can double them if need be. So we can cover ourselves in today's world, especially having that access. Yeah, whereas in the old days, of course, it was all film and much more difficult. But in today's world, they're shooting all those good days every day, those surf photographers.
They are, I'll say. What about sharks? Has there been any mishaps or broken bones on the set?
No, Temuera on this film got COVID, so that was the worst thing that happened to us on Sons of Summer. But we managed, we put him away for a week and then he came back the next week. So he extended his contract for the extra week. I got COVID on the last day of the shoot, which I was doing the second unit, but I didn't know I had it until I got home, feeling pretty badly. But other than that, no, we didn't have a lot of mishaps, and I've never had a shark attack on any of my films, thank God. I've seen sharks because I surf every day.
Yeah.
None of them bother with me.
Yeah, same here. Whenever I'm surfing out my way, there's sharks around, but I've come close, but nothing's ever happened, thank goodness, not yet.
No, thank God.
The late Hugh Keys-Byrne, he lived on the Central Coast as well, and I had a chance to sit down and have a conversation with him and he was in The Man from Hong Kong, as were you.
Yes. Now that was
That's a classic.
It is a classic, and I spent a lot of time with the lead actor, George Lazenby.
Yeah.
And he was just so delightful to work with, and I just couldn't believe that he didn't go on to be a major star. He was a good-looking guy. He was a very good actor, and but I think he married a tennis player, and I think he just went off on the tennis circuit.
Yeah, probably. I think that maybe people like George Lazenby, he had the talent, but maybe because he took that role, we know the role we're talking about, 007, that changed everything for him, and not in a good way.
No, and I think he knocked back, the offer to do more James Bond films.
Yeah,
and I don't know whether I've seen him a couple of times. I don't know whether he regretted it or not. But as you say, that film that he did with Hugh Keays-Byrne, that was a really good film.
Yeah. How did you end up on it? Just as an extra?
Yeah, sort of a glorified extra. I couldn't stay. David Hannay, who was one of the producers of the film, was a huge fan of mine at the time, because he kept offering me a lot of work during that period. And I did say to him, look, I've just done a spread for a magazine in America, and they want me to travel with it. So unfortunately, I won't be able to stay the whole time. So that role got, reduced. I did my little bit. I think I did a week on it or whatever. But that was it. It's a shame, because when I saw it later, I thought, gee, that would have been great to have done my bit on. But anyway, things happen.
Well, there's a somewhat sequel to Summer City that is now out, Sons of Summer. Some 40 years later, maybe that you could sort something out with a Man from Hong Kong sequel 40 years later.
Yes. David's no longer with us, as you know.
No.
And George, I believe, is doing a horror film with an actress that I know.
Okay.
So there you go. He's back in town and looks like he's working.
Now, a couple more questions before we wrap up, because I'm conscious of your time and I really appreciate this, Phil. Have you and Jack Thompson ever sat down and talked about the Cleo situation, the Centerfold situation?
We have laughed about it.
That's good. Over a beer, I hope.
We have laughed about it. And it was one of those things that Jack, at the time, was the biggest star in the country. And I was kind of on the rise and a little bit younger. And when they asked me to do it, the first one, my agent said, they're paying $400, Phil. There's no way in the world we're going to allow you to do it for that. But Jack did it for that because he didn't care about the money. He did it for a laugh. And of course, on my side of the coin, I was doing it as a step up the ladder, so to speak. But then they came back and asked me to do the cover and be the first guy on the cover. So I ended up well. And Cleo were very good to me in my early career. So I thank them.
Good. No, I'm glad that you have fond memories of that.
Yeah.
I mean, you've done everything. Is there anything you haven't done? There's modeling and writing, directing, acting. Are you a musician as well? Or, can you sing?
I'm a karaoke singer. And
what's your go-to song?
I go to karaoke once a week.
Yep.
And I have a laugh with a lot of the guys that were professional musos. And I do a really bad Elvis, but I do great Frank Sinatra, I think. But I see them running for the door, so I can't say that they enjoyed as much as I did.
Oh.
And I saw Tom Burlinson, who I'd offered a couple of roles on films, transition across to a singer.
He did.
And he's done very well. But my best shot's karaoke. I'll stay there.
What about a surfing musical? Do you think that would ever eventuating? You know, I'm not talking Gidget or the beach movies, but do you ever think there'd be like a surf musical one day?
That's it. Yeah, look, Frankie Avalon tried it with Beach Blanket Bingo,
Yeah.
and they were great send-ups. But look, I have been offered a rock musical by Ted Hamilton, for those who remember Ted, a very talented guy, and I am definitely considering it. Now, it's not surfing, but it's a rock musical, and it's a great story. So I don't mind crossing the genres from film, television, or theatre. So that is a very challenging project, and I'm hoping I can assist in getting that up within the next.
That'd be something I'd be willing to endorse for sure. And I just like thinking outside the box when it comes to surf movies. I mean, what about a found footage surf movie? You know, it can be a horror film or something. Kids go away on a vacation, their video camera gets found and the truth comes out maybe.
Well, you know, it's probably a good idea. I can see it when you rattle that off. I can see that.
That's my pitch.
Okay, that's your pitch. Done. Where do we sign?
I wish it was that easy.
Yeah.
What, in your own words, why should people go and see Sons of Summer? It's being shown in limited cinemas around Australia, independent theatres. I guess eventually it'll be able to stream. But why should people watch Sons of Summer, even if they're not aware of Summer City?
It's a 90-minute drama with a lot of humour and some identification. I'm pretty sure that most guys, young guys that have been on safari, will identify with this because they're going home or they're going back to where their fathers were brought up, which was, you know, Austinville, it was the name of the town. And they're going back to pay homage to the character played by Steve Bisley, who was murdered in Summer City.
Yeah.
And do a proper homage to that dad when everything goes sideways. So I won't spoil it. I won't put a spoiler in here, but there's wonderful music. It's visually good. It's a 90-minute fun and piece of enjoyment, of Australian enjoyment, which I'm pretty sure from the reaction we've had already in a couple of test screenings has come out pretty well.
Yeah, well, like I said, I've seen it, and I'd like to watch it again on a big screen because it's you filmed it like such cinema. It's cinema friendly, so I encourage people to go and see it if they can at their local theatre.
Wonderful, and at the same time, you know, there is good music and it's good, visually good, and I mean to get it out there, which we have, you know, it blows me out each time. And we're not looking for the Oscar.
No.
We just look for good entertainment. 90 minutes of good, solid Aussie entertainment.
Well, soundtracks to me are pretty important with all movies, but surf movies in particular. I know North Shore, which was an American surf movie from the late 80s, Mad Wax, which that was filmed down near my way at Avoca Beach on the Central Coast. Mad Wax had a great soundtrack. So I'm glad that you agree that the music is part of the movie, of course.
Well, in Summer City, we had, you know, legends like Cole Joy and Lonnie Lee, Johnny O'Keefe, the Atlantics, you know, bands of that era, and Ward Pally Austin at the dance. I mean, for those that remember the 2SM Good Guy days, TUW, where Ward Pally was the king of radio. I mean, he made an appearance. He's no longer with us, of course. But yeah, I love good music. So I try with the films that I produce, I get good soundtracks. And I believe this is one of the better soundtracks that I've done ever.
That's a big call, considering the movies you've done.
Yeah, big call. Proud of it.
What legacy, Phil, would you like to leave? Like, how would you describe yourself and your filmmaking? You know, if someone wanted to tribute you or talk about you, what would you be happy that they'd say, or how would you describe yourself?
I would say, how lucky am I, a Newcastle guy,
Yep.
born and raised in Steel City, which was very short in the arts world at that time of my life, in my teens, to be able to have the opportunity through my mum, who was a music teacher, to get the opportunity to move into arts in a place in a city at the time didn't want to know about it, and get a career. So it shows that a regular Joe from a small country town can, do whatever he wants if you've got the focus on that. And I've always loved theatre, movies, television, and even streaming now. I'm happy to watch streaming shows that didn't make it to the cinema. Really good quality movies and stuff that didn't get a theatrical release. So I'm blessed that my films have played theatrically around the world. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate the people who come and pay their $15 to come and see it.
Well, it's touring around the country, Sons of Summer, and including Charlestown in Newcastle.
Yes, and hopefully Central Coast.
Yeah, I hope so too. Avoca Beach Theatre would probably be the ideal place, but wherever it plays, I'll make sure that the word gets out for you, Phil. And thank you. Like I said, I've been watching your movies since I was a kid. So this is an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much, Shane. I much appreciate it, mate.